The days of our military sending 70 cents of every dollars to the United States are over. We are going to build Canada strong with Canada Steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian lumber, Canadian workers. We are on track to double our non-U.S. exports over the next decade. That is $300 billion in new orders for Canadian resources, Canadian goods, Canadian expertise. And at the same time, we are building big things again by removing all federal barriers to internal trade and fast-tracking projects that will connect, diversify, and propel our great country. We've already announced 14 nation-building initiatives supporting over 500,000 jobs and over $100 billion in new investment. From the Mackenzie Valley to Contrecoeur to Churchill, to make Canada more connected, more independent, and more prosperous. And there's going to be a lot of trade going through those corridors because we have struck 20 new economic and security partnerships on 4 continents in just a year. Our new defense industrial strategy will catalyze $500 billion of investment to build Canadian industry from aerospace to AI, creating over 125,000 new jobs in the process.
What if the most powerful country in the world tried to break you and you came back stronger? What if, instead of begging for mercy, your leader looked the giant in the eye and said, "We don't need you anymore"?
The days of our military sending 70 cents of every dollars to the United States are over.
That is exactly what is happening in Canada right now. And most people have no idea how big this actually is. That voice belongs to Mark Carney, one of the most respected economic minds on the planet. This is the man now leading Canada. Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with a plan so bold it is reshaping the entire nation.
We are going to build Canada strong with Canada Steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian lumber, Canadian workers.
On the other side stands Donald Trump, a president who slapped tariffs on Canadian goods, threatened Canadian sovereignty, and openly suggested Canada should become the 51st state of the United States.
To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state.
2 leaders, 2 visions, 1 country caught in the middle and choosing itself. So what exactly is Canada doing? This is not a reaction. This is not damage control. This is a full economic revolution happening in real time.
But repeated millions of times, and together they make a statement. We are the masters of our destiny.
The Buy Canadian policy means every single government dollar now stays inside Canada. Canadian tax money builds Canadian industries, employs Canadian workers, and strengthens Canadian sovereignty.
I'm right there with you. Canada's new government is right there with you, inspired by hard-working, always caring Canadians. From now on, for example, with our new Buy Canadian policy, when the federal government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default.
The era of funding American suppliers with Canadian taxpayer money is officially over, and the numbers are not small. We are talking about $500 billion in defense and industrial investment, 125,000 new jobs, $300 billion in new export orders. This is not a recovery plan. This is a dominant strategy.
We are on track to double our non-U.S. exports over the next decade. That is $300 billion. $300 billion in new orders for Canadian resources, Canadian goods, Canadian expertise. And at the same time, our new defense industrial strategy will catalyze $500 billion of investment to build Canadian industry from aerospace to AI, creating over 125,000 new jobs in the process.
And here is what makes this even more remarkable. This is all happening right now, in 2025. At the exact moment when Canada was supposed to be on its knees, Trump expected Canada to fold. He expected the tariffs to force Canada back to the negotiating table, desperate, weakened, and begging. Instead, Canada responded with something nobody predicted, a complete economic transformation, built not in decades, but in a single year. And this transformation is not limited to one city or one province. It is happening everywhere. New trade corridors are being carved from the Mackenzie Valley to Churchill, connecting regions that were once isolated, unlocking resources that were once untapped. 14 nation-building initiatives are already underway, supporting over 500,000 jobs across the entire country.
We are building big things again by removing all federal barriers to internal trade and fast-tracking projects that will connect, diversify, and propel our great country. We've already announced 14 nation-building initiatives supporting over 500,000 jobs and over $100 billion in new investment. We're realizing Canada's full potential, our full potential in clean and conventional energy to power Canadian homes, Canadian businesses, and Canadian sovereignty. And we're using those resources to ensure affordable energy for Canadians today and a competitive economy for our kids tomorrow.
Canada is not just building infrastructure, Canada is building independence. But why now? Why is this moment so critical? Because the world has changed. The old assumption that Canada could always rely on the United States as its primary partner has been shattered. Trump made that very clear. And rather than mourn that reality, Carney turned it into fuel. Canada is now forging 20 new economic and security partnerships across 4 continents.
It's a more dangerous and divided world. That's the reality. So we are no longer relying just on the strength of our values. We are also building the value of our strength. And as
Canada is on track to double its non-US exports within a decade. Canada is no longer putting all its eggs in one basket because Canada is becoming the basket everyone else wants access to.
we are on track to double our non-U.S. exports over the next decade. That is $300 billion. $300 billion in new orders for Canadian resources, Canadian goods, Canadian expertise.
$500 billion, 125,000 new jobs, $300 billion in new exports, 20 global partnerships, 14 nation-building projects already launched. This is not a country that is struggling. This is not a country that is surviving.
Our new defense industrial strategy will catalyze $500 billion of investment to build Canadian industry from aerospace to AI, creating over 125,000 new jobs in the process.
This is a country that is dominating on its own terms, with its own resources, and for its own people. Trump wanted Canada dependent. Carney made it unstoppable. Canada is no longer asking for a seat at the table. Canada is building the table, and the world is lining up to sit at it. Strong, sovereign, unstoppable. This is Canada, and we are just getting started.